Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Az. I am flying solo today. I've been doing a bit of research on Diogo Jota, who a lot of people are thinking of bringing into their teams. A lot of people might have already made moves to them. A lot of people considering what the priority is on Jota, given that Firmino's out, we think, for around about 5 weeks. And what people are wondering is kind of how essential, what priority should he be up on? So I've been looking at a load of stats, basically, to try and consider for myself as well whether I need to be prioritising him or whether I think there's other players that we can look to, or if he's really that essential, that word that we all like. So if any of you watch FPL Black Box with myself and Mark, you'll know that Mark is a huge fan of Diogo Jota. He's had him for a while. No one's happy with Firmino being injured, but in terms of purely FPL wise, Jota is effectively a better option with Firmino out the picture. It means Jota's almost certainly going to play the majority of minutes. There's no threat of rotation. And also it means that he takes that kind of number 9 spot as well. So he's not filling in on the left or the right or something if he's kind of filling in for Salah and Mane like he's done before. So he is essentially playing as the most central player, striker in a very attacking Liverpool side. So obviously you can understand the logic. I am very much in the opinion that he's a great player. Liverpool are a great team. He's cheap, he's 7.5, but my reluctance to get him stems off the back of a season last year where he didn't really deliver, I think, on the promise. The underlying numbers were always good. He always promised to deliver big hauls and never really did so. So Mark's kind of looking at the promise of points. I've been looking at the kind of the actual points scored, and this video is a bit of an amalgamation of both of those to see kind of what comes out, and whether I think I've changed my mind, or whether I can persuade people to go with him or not go with him. I've tried to make this as non-biased as possible. I think it's been an interesting study into him, so we'll get straight into it. Just another shout out as well. I'm using a spreadsheet created by Top Marks for this. The basics are we'd like something like this in the Scout members area at some point, and we're working towards it because this spreadsheet is absolutely incredible, and I will show you why. So if you like the spreadsheet, drop a comment in the comments and give Top Marks your thanks on Twitter as well, or on the Scout boards, because it is very, 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 very cool, very impressive. So we'll get to that in just a sec. So before we do that, let's just take a quick look at Jota so far. So he was at Wolves, obviously, for 2 years. 2018, 2019, the Premier League. He joined Liverpool beginning of last season. Bit of an injury riddled campaign for him, plus the rotation that he faced with Salah, Mane and Firmino as well. He managed 9 goals, no assists, which is interesting, 2 yellow cards, 86 points. He played 1,106 minutes, so played around a third of the games possible that he could have done. So yeah, he did miss quite a long spell with injury as well, so it's difficult. But 8 for threat out of midfielders, which is pretty strong. Creativity 30, influence 20, ICT ranked 20 out of 64, which isn't too exciting. But he's already over halfway to his points target of last season, on 46 points this year. He's already had a double-digit haul, which is actually his first ever double-digit haul, which is interesting. And he's 7.5 million and owned by 12.6% of the game. Up to this point, you can see his minutes have been pretty sporadic. He's only played 90 minutes twice in the league, against Man United, where he got a double-digit haul, and against Brentford, where he got a goal. He started quite a few games this year. Started against Norwich and Burnley, the first 2 games of the season, which he scored in. And he's played 81 minutes against Leeds, 75 against Palace, and 75 against West Ham in the last game, where he was actually subbed for Origi, who came on and scored, which isn't exactly ideal for owners or new owners. But you've got to think Jota is most likely going to start the next game too. So his ownership's increasing. People are buying into this narrative that he's a better player when Firmino's not there. And it's interesting to see if we can explore that in more detail and learn a bit more about the fantasy side of Diogo Jota. So the fixtures for Liverpool, I've gone up to game week 16. It's 5 game weeks. That's probably about how long Firmino's going to be out for. There's no guarantee that he's going to be straight back in the team when he's back. You've also got the African Cup of Nations as well, which will be starting in January. So basically, Jota is a pretty firm hold, I think, if you're bringing him in for quite a while. You might have a little bit of rotation until Salah and Mane go off. But until then, you're pretty much going to get a lot of minutes out of him. So at 7.5, he's not competing with the likes of Salah and Mane for like a premium price tag. He's in at 7.5. The games are Arsenal, Southampton, Everton, Wolves and Aston Villa, which is actually a really, really interesting run of games because on first glance, they look pretty good. I mean, Arsenal, up to a few weeks ago, people were kind of writing off and saying they could end up being the whipping boys. They've lost 5-0 to Man City, for example, lost their first 3 games. Kind of all doom and gloom, but looking a bit more resurgent now. Southampton, I would have thought that was a really good game for them a few weeks ago, but Southampton have been absolutely excellent in recent weeks, defensively and attacking-wise as well. Everton should have Doucouré back at this point. Calvert-Lewin might be back as well. It's a Merseyside derby, so you've got to think they're going to be up for it. Very interesting game. Wolves, really, really good defensive numbers throughout the season, but a poor performance in the last game against Palace. But again, I don't think that's too easy for them. And then Aston Villa will have a new manager in by then. It could be Steven Gerrard. That's the latest sort of rumours that are going around at the time of recording. It might not be him, of course. It could be someone else. But we might see a more improved Aston Villa side by then. So I don't think it's an incredible run of games for Liverpool. They're about halfway down on the ticker on the Fantasy Football Scout in terms of attacking potential in what it kind of predicts. They're below the likes of Brighton, Man City, Tottenham, Brentford still riding high at the top, and Newcastle in second. It also comes off the back of Liverpool seem to be scoring okay. They seem to be going decent going forward. They scored against West Ham, for example, but lost that game. They scored 2 against Brighton, but ended up drawing that game. And yeah, the attacking wise, it's still going okay, but there's a hell of a big reliance on Salah, obviously. And they haven't won for now 2 games. So there's kind of already small bits of panic coming in the side. I'm sure they'll be fine to bounce back. But they don't have the best platform they could have to bounce back from those two poor results. Jota's heat maps. This is heat map for this season and last season. It's basically perfect. It's exactly what you want from a midfielder in FPL. You want the heat of his touches to be in and around the penalty area. And you can see it is. He's well on course to have a very similar season in terms of where he's receiving the ball as compared to last season. You can see, as if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that the heat around the penalty area will probably grow into something that looks almost identical to the one that he had last year. If you listen to this on podcast version, essentially there's a big red heat. The most heat is on the left-hand side of the attacking pitch, just outside the penalty area, but it kind of moves into the penalty area as well, in and around the box. He's taking a lot of touches as well, very, very close to the goal. So they're the areas where you really want to see him taking touches because they're the most likely to result in a goal for him. So this is all very, very encouraging. Our friends over on the FPL Wire did some research into Jota last season. You can see on the table on the left, mids 7.5 million and under. Jota was the highest in terms of expected goal involvement per 90, ahead of the likes of El Ghazi, Gundogan, Rafinha, who had fantastic seasons, Torres, Ali, Saka, Mason Green was down there 0.4 for context, and Jota's there at 0.59. For expected goals, he's also at the top, which isn't surprising because he hasn't actually had any assists. So most of his sort of XGI, expected goal involvement, is going to come from these goals. Is 0.49, again ahead of the likes of El Ghazi, Gundogan, Torres. Willock's there at 0.32, Lingard 0.3, Mason Green with 0.29. So under 7.5 million. Last season, the underlying statistics paint the picture that Jota is the best option. There was no one better than him in terms of his underlying numbers. So big thanks to Late Riser and Zovar for those tables. We've got another one here. This is from Gowerang, Goweramg. You can find him on Twitter. He's posted a very, very good graphic, which is Diogo Jota's FPL points when he starts in different lineups. So he performs his best when actually he's with Firmino and Salah. He had 5 starts last season, 6.2 points per game. When he features with Mane and Firmino, he gets 6 points per game. And the most common is actually the formation we're going to see him in, which is alongside Salah and Mane, kind of up top, spearheading the triangle. He averages 4.9 points per game from 9 starts. When all 4 of them play, it's 4 points per game. only 3 starts, so we're using small sample sizes over here, but it's still interesting to compare these. When he comes off the bench, unsurprisingly, this drops quite significantly, 3.6 points per game, 9 times he came off the bench. And when he played with a little-known man, Xherdan Shaqiri, and Mohamed Salah, he got 1 point in 1 game. So obviously we're talking very low there. But it's interesting that, again, it's this kind of role that Firmino has. It's like Firmino unlocks these players to really showcase themselves as best they can. So he gets his 2 highest point scores per game. Again, low sample size when Firmino's in the team. So if Firmino's not on our team, this falls to 4.9. 4.9, incidentally, is a very, very good return. As we're going to go into in a bit more detail, essentially that would mean around about 190 points season if he played kind of every game doing that. So you think for 7.5 million, 190 points, you're going to be really happy getting those returns. So I want to talk about this spreadsheet now. So this spreadsheet isn't available at the moment. It's not even in beta. It's in the kind of very sort of early stages of something, but it's something that we're looking to build out. And essentially what this gives you is loads of data on historic player performances, FPL-wise. So we've got Diogo Jota here. It will tell us how many points they got in previous seasons, how many matches they played, the position they were classified in, what teams they were playing, all of this kind of stuff. And then you can see here, you've got loads of key statistics here. How much the cheapest price was, how many double-digit points they've got, how many blanks they've got, how many points they've got against the big 6, the big 4. It's just an incredible database here that I'm just teasing you all with like a carrot. But just so you know, we are working hard behind the scenes to bring out some really cool and innovative stuff to help you learn more about these players. One thing that really interests me about this, and the thing I've been using that I'm going to be talking through in a bit more detail, is you can then filter this by season. So you can have a look at players in previous seasons. You can see all the games they played in, all the results they had, how many points they've got. And what you've got here is a great little metric to tell you how many times they blanked, how many times they got over double digits, how many appearances they got. And this crucial one here is how many points per match they got. So, we talk about a lot of the different things in which Mark's keen on, so the underlying statistics and all that kind of stuff. And also we can look at then the points and how that kind of returned for players. So this is the spreadsheet I've built some research out of. So we're going to take a look at that in 2 seconds. So on the screen is the first table that I've put together. I've had a look at quite a few different players. I've had a look at the players sort of in and around Jota's price range. So Foden, Gundogan, some strikers in there, Antonio Jimenez. I've come down to Rafinha as well. Mason Greenwood's in there too. Mason Mount, obviously, that a lot of people had and are maybe moving him over to Jota, for example, because of his teething problems, but he's probably going to be back after the international break. I've also put Son in there as well, just because this is this key decision that a lot of people are trying to make between going for Son or prioritising Jota. So on the screen is last year's season. What I've looked at is the appearances, the amount of times they blanked, so the amount of times they returned 2 or less points, the amount of times they got a double-digit haul, and their points per game generally. So I've only looked at players when they played over 45 minutes. So this eliminates kind of 20-minute cameos for Jota when he's been subbed at half-time, more for any player other than that. So I filtered it by points per match. Last season, the highest points per match player was Foden, 17 appearances. He blanked 7 times. He got double-digit hauls 5 times, and he had a points per match of 6.8. Second was Son. Amazing season for him. 34 times he played over 45 minutes over the majority of games. He blanked 16 times, which is 47%. 11 double-digit returns, which is 32% of his appearances with double-digit returns, which is the highest on this list, and a points per match of 6.62. We then come down to the likes of Gundogan, Jimenez, Antonio, and Rafinha. We've got Gundogan, obviously had a great season, 6.5 points per match. The rest all around the 5 mark. Jimenez, Antonio, Rafinha, 5 and 4.9. So I should point out at this point that Jimenez's stats are taken from the season before, because obviously he had that horrible injury at the beginning of last season. So Jimenez I took from the year before. If you look at these numbers though, what you can see is blanks. It ranges from 41% from Foden as the lowest on this list, up to 48% for Gundogan. Jota, however, 12 appearances, 7 blanks. He blanked in 58% of the games that he played last season, and he returned 10 plus points 0 times. His points per match was 4.7. Now, this shows a... I mean, what does this show? Does this show an unreliable player when it comes to scoring big? Does it indicate that you shouldn't captain them? I think it does. You don't want to be captaining a player who regularly blanks or who doesn't hit big hauls. They're the two things that you want. But the fact he's got 4.7 points per match, which puts him in the same company as someone like Rafinha and ahead of the likes of Mount with 4.3, Mason Greenwood with 4.3, for example, shows that what you've got is a bit of a steady Eddie, really, which isn't something that I thought we would get with Jota. You know, a player playing in the Liverpool attack, especially when he does play, often playing at the spearhead of the attack, you'd think would get explosive returns. But what we're seeing goals without bonus, or we're not seeing any assists last season. So all of these points he scored would be him getting a goal and not hitting the bonus points threshold to get to 3, which is very interesting. His conversion rate is a little bit better than Mane's tends to be. I think it's around 18%, something like that. Which isn't too bad, but the issue is that when he scores, he often needs to get more than one goal to get into the upper echelons of the BPS and then to get the bonus points as well. So when you're looking at players like Rafinha, he's similar. I mean, he only got one double-digit return. Antonio only had 1 last season as well. I mean, Gundogan had 6, for example. Mason Mount had 4, which is something, again, that I more considered Mount as a kind of a steady, reliable player to tick over, but he had 4 more double-digit returns than Jota did last season, although he did have almost 3 times the amount of appearances. So again, this is small sample sizes with Jota. We can only really go on what we've got, but in the 12 appearances he made, he didn't get double-digit returns in any of them. If we take that over to this year, you can see actually Jota does have a double-digit return already. Got that against Man United. His points is around about the same, around about 5. He's blanked in 56% of his games that he's played out of the 9, so 5 out of 9 he's blanked in, which is in keeping with his 58% of last season. And you can see the rest of the list. A lot of these players have actually increased on their the amount of blanks they've had. Foden's gone up to 50% from 41%, for example, even though he's getting more regular run in the team. Antonio and Son are both at 50%, and Son was our most reliable player last season on this list. But these players are all returning. They've all returned 1 or more 10 plus points. Mount obviously with his big haul, which kind of puts him right up to this and has the most points per match in that. Son with 3 and Antonio with 3, 10 plus points is the highest. Rafinha's an interesting one, 10 appearances, 5 blanks in those, no 10 plus points, averaging 5 per match, the same as Jota. Greenwood's there as well, 9 appearances, 4 blanks, only 1 10 plus points. And Gundogan has massively slipped from last season, as I don't think anyone will be surprised to see, because they've got so many false 9s that they can play now. He's blanked 5 out of 7 times. He's only returned 10 plus points once, so he's kind of a non-option for us going forward. So you take away Mount's big haul, and he's obviously going to slip right down the list. Antonio and Son and Jota are all kind of in and thereabout. I mean, Son is, according to both of these metrics, is the more reliable pick. But when you factor in the fact there's almost 3 million difference between them, there isn't a huge amount to separate them in terms of the points they're getting. Son is getting 5.8 a match. Jota's getting 5. But you've got to think that Son's output is only going to increase under Conte. So there's not too much in it between them, but I would imagine when we do this at the end of the season, we're going to see that input increase from Son. And actually, for him to be getting 5.8 points a match in the team that Spurs have assembled at the moment, and the manager problems they've had and all the tactics and issues, I think does indicate that he's going to be on for a very strong season as we carry on. I've also done this research for the Liverpool players. So compared to the likes of Salah, Mane, Trent, Robertson and Firmino, who are kind of the main players. Jota's sort of somewhere in the middle, 4.7 from last season. Matches Trent from last season as well, 4.7 a match. It's better than Robertson last season, which was interesting because Robertson obviously had a fantastic season, averaging 4.2. Firmino's right down the bottom with 4. To put it into context, Mane's at 5.5, obviously had a really strong end, and Salah's there at 6.3 as well. Just to give a bit of a bit more information on Salah, he had 34 appearances playing over 45 minutes, blanked 14 times, 41%, which is really low, and scored 10 plus points 5 times, which is 15%. Mane as well, 31 appearances, 15 blanks, 4 10 plus points. So not a huge amount in it between them actually when it comes to game time, but Salah obviously the standout there. Now when we look at this season, there's a bit of a change up. Jota actually falls to kind of the bottom of this list so far. So Salah is averaging 10.6 points a match, which is absolutely insane. He's only blanked once. He's got 6 out of 11 10 plus points, 55%, which just shows how absolutely ridiculous he's been. Firmino's actually next, averaging 8 points a match. Only had 3 appearances though, so not too much we can take into it. And also we blanked in 2 of those. So he got 10 plus points in one game where he got the hat-trick. So yeah, not much we could do. But when you look at Trent, I mean, Trent's averaging 7.11, 9 appearances, 2 blanks, 4 10 plus points in 9 for a defender. I don't think we'll see the likes of that for a long time. Well, not since he did it as well. We might start seeing it more with Reece James and Cancelo, but I still think Trent is going to end up as the top scoring defender this season. Mane's actually somewhat off that, 5.8. He's had 3 blanks in 10, no 10 plus point returns. So he's getting the assist, maybe chipping with a goal, but not hitting into those like big areas. And then you've got Jota, so 9 appearances, 5 blanks. In 9 appearances for him, 1 10 plus point returns, 5 points a match. Again, the 5 blanks is a concern for me. I think it's very interesting that he blanks as much as he does. This is consistent. This is 50% plus over last season and this season in the team, averaging those 5 points a match though, which is a good return. But it does make me worry that we're going to see lots of these blanks sort of coming up over the next few weeks. Robertson incidentally is not having a particularly good season this year. 8 appearances, 5 blanks, no 10 plus pointers, and 3.3 points a match. So we can look at this in different ways. I mean, obviously Jota is a lot cheaper than the likes of Mane and Salah. He's not getting anywhere close to Salah's numbers, but he's not that far off Mane. Is there enough to justify 4 million between Jota and Mane going forward? I don't think so at all. I think Jota is representing good value. I think if he can carry on getting you 5 points a game for the 5 or 6 game weeks that you own him, I think you'll take that. I think it's more than we're going to see from a lot of the other players we've got on our side. I think he's winning me round in the sense that I think he is the best in the category at the moment for the 7.5s and under. He proved it last season with his underlying stats. And he's proven it with the points as well. Just to bring in some underlying stats as well, I've got some here. So these are the players filtered by minutes per expected goal involvement. So this is the kind of table that Mark really likes. Mount is at the top of that with 98.5 minutes per expected goal involvement. Then comes down to Firmino, Salah, Mane. So the 3 Liverpool players, Antonio, Ronaldo, Gundogan, and then Diogo Jota there. So Gundogan is still up there, which is really interesting, but it just isn't really delivering the points, and he's obviously a massive rotation risk. So if you take him out, and then you're just left with really Antonio and Mount around the kind of 8 million-ish mark. I think taking Antonio out for Jota is a move that some people might be doing, might be looking to switch around their formations and things like that. I can see the logic of doing that. I can see that people are taking Mount out as well for Jota. Small sample size with him. When a player gets all the points that they did against Norwich, it's difficult to judge them. It's interesting that Jota hasn't been performing particularly well from an FPL perspective, but he's really getting these kind of numbers high. If you look at his expected goal involvement, Diogo Jota, he is clear of the likes of Mount, Firmino, even Ronaldo, Gundogan. He's created 16 chances, which is like the 4th highest in the league. 4th or 5th highest in the league, which is great. He's taking shots in the box, 18, but played a lot less minutes. His penalty area touches are 42, which is only 1 behind Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, but he's played far fewer minutes than Ronaldo has. So all the stats point to Jota being a great FPL pick. There is absolutely nothing I can say that makes me think that Jota isn't a good pick. There's nothing I can say that will convince you that he isn't someone who's going to deliver for 7.5 million in your side. And it's come at a time when I don't think there's any other Liverpool players that we're going to want in our side. So he doesn't block you from the likes of Mane or doubling up with Robertson and Van Dijk and all this kind of stuff. I think if you're looking to make a move for a player around 7.5 million, I think Diogo Jota is the best player you can get. Do I think that you need to rip up your teams to get him in? Do I think that you should prioritise him over the likes of Son? I think if I was going to pick one now, Son or Jota, I would go with Jota, and I'd wait to see what happens with Spurs. I think Son is going to massively announce himself back onto our radars at some point, but it is Jota that I would be prioritising going forward. If I had to make a move, maybe you're looking to upgrade the likes of Mbomo, or you're getting rid of a Jamie Vardy, or you're looking to kind of free up some funds and move things around. I think Jota is a very, very sensible pick going forward. And I think the fact that he's got African Cup of Nations coming up as well, and Salah and Mane are going to be jetting off to that, just makes him an even better option as well over the Christmas period too. So that's my summary. The pros are he's playing the top team with the best attacking stats. Liverpool are creating the most chances of any team in the league from attacking wise. If he carries on with his 5 points per game, he's going to get 190 points, which is going to be a great return for a 7-5 midfielder. He's pretty much rotation proof with Firmino out. We might see Origi come in a little bit like we did against West Ham, but I think it's going to be pretty minor. It's going to be limiting to 75, 80 minutes rather than taking his starts. He's looking better on last year as well. Although the blanks are still high, he's already had a double-digit return, which he's managed to get, and his points per game has increased, even though he hasn't really lit up the league as of yet. As well, Liverpool are improving as well. Liverpool are a much better force than they were last season. They really, really struggled last year. Trent's back to his best as well, which is massively going to help the strikers and the attackers, because he's going to get the ball into the box. He's going to deliver quality free kicks and set pieces, which is only going to help Jota. And finally, stats are just unbelievable. If you're a big stats backer, like so many of us are, Jota is right up there with some of the best and elite players in it. So you've got to feel like a player of his quality, playing for the most attacking team, we're going to start seeing some big returns from him. In terms of the cons, I think he's going to frustrate people. I think he is going to blank a fair bit. He doesn't need to return every game. I think you're going to have to show some patience with him and not immediately transfer him out. I think he's a player he's quite a nice player, because he should form a bit of a set and forget option. You stick him in your team and you just kind of let him sit there and churn over the points as you go. It does maybe block you from going 5 at the back, for example, or it could possibly do if you've got Salah in there as well. If you've got players like Rafinha who you don't want to lose, you might find it hard to bring in some of the wing backs that are doing so well. Also, the wing backs are cheaper, to the likes of Reece James and Chilwell, and hopefully I'll have something coming out on those in a bit more detail at some point over this international break too, who are offering like similar outputs for cheaper money. So it might be that your priority lies in getting those defenders in rather than going for Jota. You might have other priorities as well. Spurs are a really intriguing one. I'm not saying that my personal view is Conte needs time. He needs at least a week training with these players before I'm going to consider them. But I realise that people are going to want to move for them fast. The fixture run's really good. I don't think there is going to be a right or wrong answer, but we won't know it for a few weeks. I personally am going to wait, but I can completely see why people are trying to get ahead of the curve and bring these players in. If you're doing that, you're probably not going to have room to bring in Jota, and you're probably going to miss out. You might have a bit of a headache after 5 game weeks when Firmino does come back and just before the African Cup of Nations starts as well. But that's going to be kind of quite short-lived. You might even have a headache if Klopp does decide that Origi deserves a chance in the team. There might still be a bit of rotation there, but I'd be quite surprised if there was. You've got other similar price options performing well. So if you've got Mount, if you've got Foden, if you've got Rafinha, it might be hard to know who to take out to bring Jota in, and you might get it wrong, and you might end up like losing points off the back of that transfer. Like I said, I would only be bringing Jota in if I wanted to get rid of a player who I know I didn't want. I don't think I'd be moving heaven and earth to bring him in. I think I'm probably going to avoid him in my own team. I'm happy with Rafinha, I'm happy with Smith Rowe, I'm happy with Salah, for example. I could maybe move Mbomo up to him next week or the week after. I'd have to free up some funds to do that. I'm not going to rip my team up just to make it. And the final corner is his next 5 fixtures. I don't think there's going to be huge points in it for him. I don't think Liverpool are going to score bucket loads of goals. There might be other teams in which you want to target. Man City, for example, you could double it with Bernardo Silva, for example, or Gabriel Jesus, and try and tap into that City attack, who have slightly better games. So yeah, my overall verdict on Jota is great pick. Great option. I like him. I like him more now than I did when I started making this video. I wouldn't captain him. I think he's going to be he's going to blank too much. He's not going to hit the double-digit returns that you want from him. Salah's a better option in almost every way. But if you're not thinking about captaining him and you need a spot and you want someone for around 7.5, I think he's pretty much the best pick that you can get in. And like I said, I would be getting him in instead of Son if I had to make the choice out of the two. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's been interesting. Hope you like the spreadsheet. If anyone's going to be asking when it's going to come out, I have absolutely no idea. It's very much just a kind of internal thing at the moment. But we are looking to make it something that we bring into the members area at some point. So watch this space. But thank you very much, and I will see you all very soon.